And good afternoon, Dave and Andy. How are you gentlemen doing?
Doing well. Good afternoon.
Doing
Okay.
great. Thanks, Mike. Good to see you, Dave.
Yeah, you two have never met before, other than a few minutes ago, and when Exploded Pod, we started this once already, so this is time too. So hopefully things go a little better this time. We'll get right into this because it could be a little longish, and you've probably heard of us talking about NodeRed and what the heck's NodeRed and why would I use it. But we want to introduce people to NodeRed and using it for some very simple station control. And today we're going to talk about the very basics of how do I have 3 or 4 relays to turn on my power, turn on my power supply. Maybe in the Flex world, send a push to talk command. You know, if you ever had to do a remote push to talk thing. And then a little script on how to maybe, hey, I got lightning and I'm going to push this button and have something happen. But don't worry, it is really very, very, very simple. And hey, Kyle, how are you? So we'll go right into that. And John, no 6400 for you. And I was going to post some of these comments, but I'm too busy chatting. You guys can see them down below. But so we'll get right at it. And NodeRed, by the way, is an IBM product. And I'm just going to share. Oh, all my screen shares are gone. So we'll just we'll do a application here, and you can see that NodeRed.org. They describe it as low code level programming for event driven applications, and that's a lot of the stuff we do in amateur radio. We read a frequency, maybe we want to change an antenna. That's an event driven application. We push a button, we want something to happen. That's an event driven application. And it looks like this. There's this nice GUI. It can get very intense if you want it to, but it really doesn't have to be. And I'm going to pass it over to Andy. Andy's pretty new at NodeRed. I think you've been at it for maybe a month or two. Andy, is it about right? Maybe a little longer.
And, almost a year, Mike.
Really? God.
Well,
this year feels like a century. No wonder.
Pre-COVID. Yeah, Mike. Certainly, lots of information available on the internet for NodeRed. Although it's an IBM product, it is very, very open source. If you're into some automation, this is the way to get at it in a very intuitive way without taking the covers off and getting into coding. Let's use an analogy. If you like a sausage on a bun, you don't need to tour the sausage factory to see how things work. One place I would suggest that you take a look is opto22.com. Now, Opto22 is a company in California. They are automation engineers. They produce some products, but one thing they happen to have is a very well put together series of videos, basically taking you from neophyte to expert in NodeRed. So you might want to take a look there. The Opto video series, the Intro to NodeRed series. There's I think there's 5 or 6 videos there. They're very unassuming, so go there with confidence and leave there with lots more. The gentleman that puts this together, he's got about 14 videos in all. You may find some other stuff that's interesting as well.
Where are they, Andy? I'm here now.
Opto22.com is the website, and if you want to just go into YouTube, you can pull up Opto Video.
Okay. Carry on, talk, and I'll just.
I was just going to say. I mean, after you master in 5 videos NodeRed, that's all it takes, right, Dave? It's 5 videos, and you're an expert.
Yeah, well, not even. You could be an expert real quick. It's really not hard. It's a lot of fun, and it's addictive. We can go over a couple of real brief things to get you going, and there's, as you said, the intro to NodeRed. Those are great videos, and pretty much it covers getting NodeRed installed on whatever operating system or device you're going to be using. And then once it's installed, you got to, possibly add additional nodes, load in your first flow, and then, load in the dashboard and configure the dashboard. Once
Hold
you
on,
do
Dave.
that,
Before we get there, those are just foreign terms
yeah,
for.
that's down the road. I know Mike wants to go in order here.
So so these are the videos. I've watched a bunch of them. I think they're very well delivered. And just watch the first one. And so I said the setup we're going to have today is actually incredibly simple. There's the palette, or there's what we work from. And I have been using these little relays, which plug right into your Raspberry Pi, so no soldering. This is a 4-person relay. It's made by Keystone Studio. 4-function relay by Keystone Studio. So this is probably a lot to get you going. You can maybe control your DC power to your radio, maybe turn the power supply on and off, turn your accessories on and off. And when you're done, and I'm going to show you how simple it is, we're going to have a web page to do this. A very simple web page. You can look at it on any device. And I have some. Those are called hats. Does the Pi World call them hats? And I don't know why.
That's probably an important point to make, Mike, and just to re-emphasize, NodeRed does exist on multiple platforms, but what we're going to chat about today is having that possibility take place on a Raspberry Pi. And I draw your attention to the fact that the module here that Mike's picked out, it's $7. It's $7, and the Raspberry Pi, depending whether you have a Pi 3 or Pi 4, you're easily looking at nothing more than $50, $75. So for a whole lot of nothing, you get a whole lot of something.
Yep. So that's that. And I pulled one of these out of the box today, and I went to configure it, and I was having a bit of a battle with it. So it just maps to 4 pins on the Pi. They're called GPIO ports. I should be able to just sort of poke a pin, and I'll show you that GUI, and the relay should turn on. And the first one did, and I went great, and the second one didn't. So in typical ham fashion, I struggled with that for a while, and so what am I doing wrong? And then I sort of Googled it, only to find out that they make these things called within the the NodeRed world called these are called a node, and someone's already written all the hard stuff to control this relay and turn it off. So you can actually install that. It's called you use something called the palette to install it over here, and then when and it's as simple, by the way, as installing. I went to palette. What's it called? I searched. It was called a KS0212. Pop up, and I hit install, and it's oops, I'm not even sharing my screen. Add to stream. There we go. So I went and searched for this switch, or this palette, this hat called the KS0212, and lo and behold, somebody already written this 2 months ago, because it wasn't there 3 months ago because I looked, and so I installed it, and which was click click click. And away you go. If you looked at what they say here, they've got all these instructions about how to install it with command line. You do not have to go through there. You actually use the palette manager, which is what I'm in here. So when I was done, this is what it looked like. Now, the way this works is, let's just copy these two, and I'm going to pull them over to a new screen, and Control C, and just like WYSIWYG stuff, I have these two devices. Let's get rid of that. And so we've got relay 1 here on the thing, and it says it's called relay 1. Well, geez, that's all I need to know. And this is a button, and you can see it's got a slider button on it. And it says when I push it on, it communicates by sending a message from one node to the other. And they call them payloads, like that. And we're going to wire it. We've now got those two payloads those two nodes talking to each other. And when I push the button, and this is not the web page, it sends a message to the relay. And on the payload, it says When we turn it on, it's going to send a 1. And when we turn it off, it's called a 0. It'll send a 0, sort of the universal on-off world. And there's a lot more stuff under the covers here, but it's generally called message msg.payload. You can have message dot a whole bunch of different things, but for the next while, you're just going to worry about message payloads. And so when I do that, it'll send the message, and and turn the relay on. So what I am going to do is, once you've sort of written this, by the way, this is now complete. It's a done package. It now works. I can deploy that, meaning it's been compiled, or I don't know, whatever they do with it on the Pi. Don't really care. And now I can go look at it. And this is the part I can never find easily. Dashboard. Here we go.
You got to go up the top to the hamburger.
There it is.
So,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 radio operators. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. So we copied the name radio operate. I thought that was me. We'll go back to the palette, and this is the relay, and it happened to have the relay actually had a name called radio operate, or did it? Test. And these are just raw names. Every time you change something, you need to deploy it. Now let me split out this screen here like this. And you can't see that now, can you? Let me share my whole screen now. Which would be a little easier. So we have the did this get deployed somewhere else? There we go.
You don't have it, hey Mike?
Yep.
You don't have it set up where you could switch screens. Normally in the upper left, you have the little hamburger, and you would click there and it would go to the different dashboards.
Oh yeah, no, I haven't set that up yet.
You have to put that on. Go in if you go into the
that's okay.
one.
That's okay, Dave. For the moment, we'll just keep it pretty simple.
Okay.
So this radio operator comes from here, and this is where the label is, test. And now you can see it. And we're going to redeploy that, because you have to deploy it after you make any change. And the page will reload, and there's our test. Ignore the ones above it. And every time I push this, the relay will go on and off. And I can look at my Pi over there and see the LED of the radio going on and off. Guess what? We're done. So I'm going to delete these, because
Mike, before you delete them,
Control Z.
My favorite Z. Like Buddy the Elf question. What's your favorite node?
My favorite node.
Debug.
Yeah, debug. Thank you. Message node. No, my favorite node's dashboard, but you're right. Thank you very much. There are two things here, and they'll teach you about this, called the debug one. And I can do that. And if you've done any coding before, you've done a printf to see what's really going on. And here under the bug, and we'll just erase everything here, you'll see that every time I push,
you got to deploy it.
I got to deploy it. Never done that mistake before. Every time I push this button, okay, I've turned it off, we have a 0. If I push it again, we have a 1. And we push it again and again and again, you'll see that we've gotten the 1 and 0, which is the payload that's been sent from the relay node, the switch node, to the message payload.
This is an incredibly powerful tool in NodeRed. And I think the one thing I learned of it as I bumbled through putting some flows together was, if you got a string, or if you got a buffer, you got some information from an external device and you really couldn't figure out what it was, this was the way to do it. You could go in and see the message formatting, look for the text or the values that you were after. Incredibly powerful thing. And Mike, you can turn it on and off real quickly just by clicking the button.
And now when I flip it, we won't get here. Debugs, you can fill the screen up pretty quickly, especially when you're reading amateur radio data, like I was with my watt meter. last night, which I was only texting Andy about 10 o'clock going, why won't this parse out? But eventually debug helped a lot. What else can we talk about? And then, so if you wanted to add another relay and another button, you could just drag up the second relay or the third. And I don't know why they call them 2, 3, 4, 5 and not 1, 2, 3, 4. But it turns out that 2 is 1 and 3 is 2, and you get the idea. So you just drag and drop them. And if I wanted 2 relays to go on and off at the same time, I could do this. I just wire it through like that, deploy it. And now every time I push the button, this page auto reloaded, by the way. And if I look at it, 2 relays will come up, will go on and off at the same time. That's now if we go back over to here, I'm going to change tabs. I'm going to go back to flow here. This is an entire, let me delete this now. Andy, anything else we want to talk about?
Nothing that you're going to control Z.
Okay, so let's deploy that. We'll notice now that the page gets rebuilt and we've got our simple things. So then I got a bit carried away. And I thought, well, geez, I've got my, I've got my radio on, I got my 12-volt power supply on, I got my watt meter and stuff on, and this is for us flex people when occasionally we have to hit push to talk for a registration. I actually have a timer in mind, so it only goes for a second. Yes, there can be, by the way, there are gates, and I'll show you. We'll get into the in-depth stuff near the end because I don't want to scare people away, but I'll show you what I'm doing with a gate on one of my production flows. I can say, oh, wow. Actually, let me turn this off. This will probably mess things up a bit. So just wait for this to time out. Oh, my God, there's lightning. And I can push this button here. And what's going to happen is the first thing we're going to do is take this button. And in our Flex world, we're going to turn the radio to standby with the RCA connector on the back. And generally, I would say I would have this timer to 60 seconds, but for the sake of the demo, we're going to do 10 seconds. So once I click hey, I've got lightning nearby, we're going to turn off the 12-volt accessories. We're then going to turn off the radio, and then we're going to turn off the big 12-volt power supply. And if I click that, you'll see the accessories go right away. And then 5 seconds later, the radio will start to shut down. And then followed by that, we'll have the 12-volt power supply turn off and everything's down. So that's how you sort of get carried away going, oh, cool. I can delay the message payload to turn it off going up into the switch by 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute, half an hour, whatever you'd like. And you know what? Now we have a fully functional web page to control 4 things from an iPhone, iPad, Android, whatever you want to use. There's my short story. Dave?
And you can get even further carried away with the lightning to have a weather node. And when
Correct.
a weather node is set up for your local forecast and it says lightning, it can just automatically trigger that lightning sequence.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and Andy, what was the other one that goes with the wind?
Yeah, so PST rotator also has the ability to point rotators into the wind. Now, that's pretty cool. So as Dave was alluding to, you could take that information from Weather Underground, for example, and make some decisions based on that. Things are going to ice up. It's getting dark. Turn the shack lights on. Oops, it's getting too windy. The gusts are high. Turn the antennas at 90 degrees or into the wind. All kinds of decisions you could make through that information. And as you gather that information, you can also send that information. So what Mike's done here is displayed some of this on a dashboard, and he's controlled something. But also there are nodes available in NodeRed that would allow you to send notifications, a text message or an email to let you know that, hey, the wind up at the remote station is picking up, or that I've shut down, the system is shut down, the radios because lightning is close. There are myriad things you can do with this.
On the NodeRed site, there's a lot of nodes that are already written to do really cool things. So if you have CASA switches, as Andy was talking about when we were having a conversation about lunchtime, I want to know. I don't know. There's a whole pile of Alexa stuff. You know, if you're
The CASA one was an interesting example, Mike. So Mike had a few shows back shared how inexpensive these little CASA Wi-Fi switches were, and in fact they were in Canada and Amazon. They were dirt cheap for a day, so I bought a couple, and I started to put a flow together in NodeRed for them. And I suddenly realized that I'm putting a lot of effort into here. Maybe I could just see if somebody else has already done it. And lo and behold, a couple of people had already written nodes specifically for the TP-Link products and for the CASA relays. It was so easy to implement.
Yeah, and there's like if you type in this again is on NodeRed.org under flows. This is the stuff that people have shared. There's a lot, and the search engine's really good. We'll show you a bit more complicated ones in a minute, but that's the basics. That gets you going. You could get this up and running in almost no time. So, what about a VPN? Well, most of this runs on a local network, and what if I'm not home? There are ways around that. That's sort of a bit different networking. Could SmartLink be made to work with this? Don't know, but it's worth maybe investigating. And as Chris Knox says, and Chris, I'm gonna share this because we've all been there. You know,
Laying in a hospital bed doing programming. That's how I got into it.
yeah, it's not really even programming because I am not a coder. I can't code.
Yeah.
I can say hello world and then it falls apart after there. But this clicked with me, and so that's the sort of thing. Dave, you want to just describe some of the? Okay, we're going to go way out on a limb here. I'm going to pull something else up in a minute. Dave is going to try to share a screen, but I don't know if he can or not.
My desktop's in the waiting room there.
It says devices not connected. You need to connect your mic or cam before you can add them to the stream. So you'll need to come up with some sort of other microphone as well.
I thought I had it.
Anyway, so Andy is part of a club station. So some of the tricks you've done, Andy, can it John? That's a good question. Can it power cycle your router? Yes, actually, you could. Sort of a slippery slope because you don't want to cut the tree limb off.
I don't have a camera. I don't have a camera on there, but the mic.
I can add this. So share your desktop now. Well, he figures that out. So yeah, you could probably do that. If ping fails, because I've done some ping stuff, it will return a negative message, and then you could say, "Hey, reboot my router." I haven't done it. Can you TeamViewer into a PC from that log into the Pi? Don't think you need to, Chris, because it's all web-based, unless I'm not understanding what you're doing. So, but I'm going to remove you, Dave, until you figure it out. Andy, what have you got going at the club that you've automated? And I'll pull up one of my...
Well, certainly power cycling is an important thing. We run a station with a 6300 and a 6600, and we do a lot of remote access right now as a result of the pandemic, and we also run an EME station. We have rotators controlled here, environmental monitoring. We also have an old RLC3 repeater controller that's at another site. We haul that information over a 5.8 gigahertz link. Pretty much the health of the entire network is monitored. And if you want, Mike, I can just share a monitor here real quick, and you can get a sense of what we watch.
Chris, you could forward a port to it. I don't think it's password protected, so it'd sort of be wide open. We're a big fan of smart ether VPNs, and we could probably do a whole session on those. There's Dave's desktop. I can bring that up, Dave. And
there's my mouse.
There goes your mouse. Let me share something simple, no, not so simple here, but how I got a little carried away. And I only want you to look at the bottom here as an example. So I use KMtronic web switches specifically, but you know, here's some of this is experimental, but just look at this middle part here. This is an injection timestamp, and it says every minute do this routine, and it says read the temperature from the pi, which was done. Okay, I scarfed this off the internet, how to read an I2C temperature, because I certainly can't write a script like this. And then I got a number back, 12 or whatever, which is great. And then I said, if the number is greater than or equal to 24, go out this path, or less than or equal to 22, go down this path. And what it does is turns the fan on or off. Now you notice there's no wiring right here between the turn fan on. It's because it's winter, and I never want that fan to turn on even by accident during the winter, because my shack is not heated in that area. Ultimately, this looks like a really nice control panel, but you start to end up with all these nodes. There's, the health of my Raspberry Pi. I just copied that in. That came from the NodeRed library. I didn't do anything to it. LP100 watt meter. Larry Phelps, great LP100, LP700 watt meter. The upper part right now is my current code I use to read my wattage when I'm actually transmitting. I can see it on a web page. Last night I got bored and started to say, hey, can I do it differently? So the bottom part's just some test area. And I can sort of see, and as Andy was saying, what's my favorite node? Debug nodes, because I was trying to see what I was getting out on each other. All right, Dave, I'm going to add yours, and there you go.
All right.
Oh, the Vita 49 one. Dave, what's a Vita 49?
Yeah, the Vita 49 is getting information from the radio. Pretty much the radio broadcasts data all the time. It's sending it out in broadcast packets. So what we're doing is the first node is a UDP in node that listens to to port 4992 for these broadcast packets, and it takes the broadcast information, comes into the next node, radio data, and what that does is it splits it on the space character, because the packets coming in, all the information is separated by spaces, and then the switch node basically says, if it equals caret model equals, it'll take that information and pass it off. And it tells it, okay, this one says, I want to, take that payload and split it, and then take the character after it, and it puts it out as a model. So what you'll see on the dashboard under the Flex Radio panel, radio model, says Flex Radio 6600M. The next one is radio name, client IP, and client name. So you'll have the radio name is, I have them out of order in the dashboard. That's my radio name's my call, client name, and then the client IP. Right now I'm running the Flex 6600M from panel, and then the IP of the front panel, not the radio. So that's the Vita 49 information.
Let me interrupt you right now. Don't let the little bit of coding that Dave did scare you. We actually happy to share this.
Yeah.
And I asked Dave yesterday, or it was about a week ago as it started, about some integration to the Antenna Genius. And I've seen the communications code, and it's really complicated. I got back a work of art. So, oh yeah, and you then get to organize everything and make it look neat. I know this looks intimidating, but he's built this one piece at a time, and then it's just a lot of copy and paste.
Yeah,
to be honest,
the Antenna Genius code. Connie N5HC helped out with this also with some of the contributions. And what it'll do is it'll go and read the programming from the Antenna Genius, and you can control the antenna selection from either having it follow the radio when you switch bands on the radio. It will follow it from clicking on different antennas available right in NodeRed, or you can go ahead and have, if you're a contester using N1MM Plus, when you're in the call entry window from either Radio 1 or Radio 2, if you're using SO2R, the Alt F9 in N1MM Plus will also step through available antennas on that band. And then antennas that are not available on a band are grayed out in a display. The coding here, if you notice, these nodes here are all grayed out. I don't have a second Antenna Genius. This is set up to have a stack where you can have up to 16 antennas then. So yeah, it's pretty, when you start looking at it, it gets a little involved in everything, but it's especially the function node. But the good thing is that these nodes that myself and other people are writing in the Groups IO group, NodeRed-Ham Radio, we share these, and they're able to be downloaded and installed and modified and whatever you want to do with them. So we make them available to everybody.
And here we go on that. And so this is the groups.io. Our goal with this group that we started in the summer is to help you and to share what we've written. And we wouldn't be here, by the way, without a lot of the catalyst, at least for me and several of us, was Andreas N6NU, who did some of the basics, or did some pretty cool stuff with the stepper. What else did you do, Dave? He did the W2 watt meter. I did the KPA 500 once I saw his stepper code, and then he said a lot of stuff with MQTT called Mosquito, which is something later if you were building a bigger station. So don't worry about that. But in this email group on groups.io called NodeRed-Ham Radio, please, if you're interested in getting started, please jump in. I think Kyle, you jumped in a couple of weeks ago, and we're here to get you started. And for the new user, Dave, what do we have here that can get the new user going?
Yeah, on the wiki, if you look in the lower left there, and I'm going to be updating this to include the latest for FR Stack. That's the other thing that's incorporated. We set up the wiki here that get you going, take you from having a Raspberry Pi 3B in pieces with an SD card, and to be able to get up and running with NodeRed loaded and also FR Stack, and then get going and ready to load your first flow into NodeRed. So the wiki is pretty much a starter to get everything set up on the Raspberry Pi, whether you want to use a 32-bit or a 64-bit operating system. I recommend to start with the 32-bit operating system. The 64-bit is still kind of in beta with Raspberry OS, so stick with the 32-bit for now.
Alan Blind is a big contributor as well. He's done, if you're a satellite operator, he's got a whole fully integrated satellite SAT-PC 32, or I don't know if it's the Flex software for those satellite operators for tracking. Somebody asked about gating. I'll show you what I've done for gating. I don't want my stepper, where's my stepper, moving. So I have my NodeRed code in the Flex radio connection. We're going to jump all over. It connects to my radio and it pulls a bunch of stuff out here, but we ultimately must be in one of the in one of the screens. Ultimately, it gets this command from Mosquito, which is just a server to share information, and it's gated actually here. And so that if it thinks the radio's in transmit, it will not send a command to the stepper. So to answer the question, yes, you can do gates. It's a whole node called gates, and it says, open, close, toggle, whatever I want to do. And I also have my watt meter. I don't have it in this one yet. When I was running my Elecraft watt meter, it would occasionally just read out a random. And I go, I don't know where the noise was coming from, and I didn't really feel like diagnosing where it was coming from. So I just gated it so that it would not read power unless the radio was in transmit. So this is how you sort of get carried away. And then I do work with professional sports, so I have these display boards that we use for timing ski races or whatever. And I'm thinking, I'm going to bring in one of my Elgi boards, and those are we've got a couple of hams, by the way. They're also ski race timers. And I think I'm going to have it just sitting here, and it's going to show, some Flex radio health and toggle through temperature, frequency, whatever. Just, why not? Because I can. So, just sort of how you can get carried away. And this is also really handy when, this is all cool stuff that we would love the radio to actually do. But in our Flex world, there's literally thousands of amazing, great ideas that we would love to implement in the radio. And we may never get to them in any timely fashion, but because the radio sort of is an open source connection, I can now do what I want to do that's special to me. My audio's clipping. Thanks, Dan, for letting me know. And I cut it down a bit. So I think we're about done, just to sort of get your feet wet. We went a little into the weeds more than I wanted to. Andy?
Yeah, if you wanted to flip back to my desktop, I'll show a couple of the flows that I have. I have the VIDE 49 flow, the Flex Radio flow. I have a speech flow, which I have disabled right now, that actually I've been working on, that will pick up
Can you zoom in a bit on that?
different things like frequency of the radio, the mode of the radio, and be able to speak it as you're changing frequency or bands in the radio, or bands and modes. And so this is an idea that we can implement for sight impaired hams. KPA 1500 flow, my rotor control flow talk.
Can you zoom in a bit?
What was that?
Zoom in a bit.
Okay, yeah.
3 dots upper right.
All right. There you go. This is just the rotor control flow that talks to PST rotator UDP server. So I use PST rotator as a UDP server, and this talks to it, and that gives me the rotor control panel there, where I can have preset buttons or directly input the azimuth direction. Again, the KPA 1500. You can zoom in on this here, and just So again, this is just for picking up band, temperature, operator standby, operate standby, power on and off, forward power SWR, and fault conditions, fan speed. And again, that shows up here. You can view this, as Mike said, you can view this on any web browser, whether it's on a smartphone, a tablet, a PC, Mac, doesn't matter. Any web browser can show the dashboard. You can secure the dashboard in multiple ways. You can password protect it. You could do 2-factor authentication. So there's ways that you can secure it. So if you're using it remotely, and it makes it very handy on an iPad to use split screen mode. When you're operating, on an iPad, you can bring up split screen mode, where you have a web browser in half of it and Smart SDR for iOS on the other half to control the radio. And in addition to that, the web switch, I use the Digital Loggers Web Switch Pro, where I can turn items on and off. And that gives me a little panel here called Power Switch, where I can turn the different devices on and off. And just by clicking on them, and I'll toggle the outlet on and off. Again, there's other stuff. We talked about FR Stack. For people who are familiar with FR Stack, there's FR Stack integration that will run on multiple platforms within NodeRed. And here's FR Stack, and you can sit there and select the radio. And then, you could just sit there and set it, and it would pick like slice A. And you could just go through and set it, the radio and the profiles. You can adjust pretty much all the parameters. And one of the other things in FR Stack is you can go into your slices and have control over slice A, B, C, and D in the radio, and control all the settings. So this is something in the wiki. It covers how to set up FR Stack when you set up NodeRed on the Raspberry Pi.
Okay. Hey, Dave, that would be nice on a contest and a touch screen beside you. It's what I found the last contest I did, that I now going to do another screen and have my iPad open on a web page, so that, because I like to rapidly change antennas, and moving a mouse is painful. So FR Stack's good at that. But certainly being able just to reach over with a finger, in the old contest days when I would be going on 40s, you better on antenna 2 or antenna 3, and you're changing rapidly. So that's pretty good. I don't want to go too long, but David, one more thing. Is there anything really quickly you want to point out?
No.
Put the ribbons on it.
pretty much, we're sitting there, and I've helped a lot of people who've had questions and have followed along and got stuck in a couple of places, and they email me, and I've been happy to work with them remotely, and get them going, get them over to hurdle a little bit, and then they get off and running with it. So it's a lot of fun. YouTube, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube. Google has a lot of answers. That's how I find out when I get stuck and I can't figure something out. I Google it. So that's
Good.
pretty much it.
Good point. And I think at the same point in time, Google's got some answers. Groups.io has got some answers. We do have the Brandmaster talk group 30234, where folks that are interested in Flex or NodeRed often hang their hats, and that's a great place to stop by, noodle some ideas, ask around, and get some help. So I'd encourage that as an option too for those of you who might be active on DMR.
Perfect. Any other quick questions? I hope my audio. Sorry for the overdriving audio. That's the StreamYard application decided to do something there, so we got that fixed up. So I'm gonna put the ribbons on it, but I think the whole point is, and I know these flows, the advanced ones look really scary, but as the way I learn is, okay, can I get the information I want? Oh wow, I got the IP address to the radio. Now can I want to maybe post it on my webpage or my dashboard, as Dave calls it. Does it look the right way? And then you start managing it, and that's why you start parsing things and doing things. So we find that pretty cool. So gentlemen, Dave, thanks for taking time out of your day.
Yep.
And Dave's really active on our NodeRed group on groups.io. Alan Blind is another person. If you're talking to Andreas and 6NU, tell him thanks for being the catalyst. And said we got a lot to share. They're either in there's some in GitHub. There's a lot in the groups.io. I can't imagine anything today that you probably have to write from scratch. And I was actually nice to see, Dave, that you wrote the digital logger IO GUI, because the one it comes with is almost unusable because it's so complicated out of the box. And they never made sort of a user console for it, right? It was the administrator console, and that's a great power switch. Andy?
No, again, this is successful. It moves forward because I think we've got a lot of collaboration. We've got a lot of developed expertise. As Dave mentioned early on, he didn't start off as a coder, but I would dare say he's there now. Intuitively, visually through NodeRed, you don't need to be a JSON expert. But if you are, then NodeRed's also got the ability for you to pull back the curtain and look behind the scenes too. So good chat. I think Mike, it really means for us time to go for today. But this is a topic we'll probably want to continue at a future date.
Yeah, would love to do the next level. If you have any questions, you can send them to me at info@flexradio.com, or my call sign vi3mw@flexradio.com, or the groups.io. Ask questions, or if you need us to expand something, I can corral these guys, because I don't think either one of them is leaving their desk for a while. Yeah. Here in VE3 land, we're locked down for a month, so till the 28th of January. So nobody's going anywhere. Everybody else, season's greetings, Merry Christmas, or whatever holiday you observe, and I hope you all have a great time.
Be safe, stay well, and 7-3.
Happy holidays.